Melina is most likely the Gloam-Eyed Queen, and she's basically the Grim Reaper except without a cool scythe and instead a big ass flaming sword. I wholly, truly and fully believe that Melina is our parent, or at least we are descended from her as the Tarnished inside of Elden Ring. Whenever I sort of make a video and make a claim like that inside one of these videos, a lot of people immediately run for the dunce hat and shove me in the corner. All I ask is you watch at least a bit of the video to come to your own conclusion instead of judging it right off the back. But before we get into that, a really small percentage of the people that watch these videos are actually subscribed. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe right now, this isn't some reverse psychology shit. Only, and I mean only if you enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. If you don't enjoy the video, feel free to leave a dislike. I genuinely want constructive criticism as it helps me make future videos better. Without any more dilly-daddling, please sit back, relax, grab some succulent, scrumptious, tasty, sensational and mouth-watering prawns if you want, and enjoy as we delve into Melina being our possible mom. There's quite a few hints towards the parentage of the Tarnished inside of Elden Ring, and while I do definitely believe that we have some descendancy from Melina, I first of all want to talk about the evidence that suggests we are a demigod, even if it turns out we're not actually Melinas. The first and one of the most profound pieces of evidence actually comes from something that was told to me months and months and months ago in my comment section. As the opening cutscene plays and you get to your part where the Tarnished of quote unquote no renown rises, you hear the mausoleum sound, the sound associated with that.
Cross the fog to the lands between. To stand.
The mausoleums hold soulless demigods. Don't you think it's a bit of a coincidence that this sound plays just when you rise? And to me, the fact it's been over 2 years since the game released and this has never been removed, this heavily suggests to me that this was intentional and is a part of the design of the game, which says a lot about the identity of the Tarnished. Okay, and why does Marika of all people favour us? She wants us to become her lord. Basically everyone has lost the guidance of grace. Everyone talks in reverence how we can still see it. But why are we the only people that can see these golden lights, at least within the Tarnished, that we know about? Why is that the case? Why does Marika favour us? Well, maybe it has something to do with our heritage, where we come from and who we're perhaps descended from. My third and final point for this section has to do with the fact that we don't die. We do not see this power anywhere within the lands between. The closest we get is phantoms who, from a lot of item descriptions and evidence, suggests maybe they're just some projection of the mind and that they don't have a necessary massive impact upon the world. We kill phantoms inside of Elden Ring and yet their physical body is still there. Well, what happens if we kill the physical bodies of those who are not the Tarnished, who are not us? What happens? They're gone. Completely gone. It isn't a phantom situation, it isn't a Tarnished situation. They are gone and no amount of forgiveness juice is going to bring them back. This is in stark contrast to us. We fade into ashes and then we're just brought back straight away. We keep throwing ourselves at these challenges and yet our death means nothing. We just continue on and on and on. And while this could be seen as a gameplay feature that's just been implemented into Elden Ring, this is very unlikely. In all of From Software's games, death mechanics have their own purposes. In Bloodborne, you're a hunter of the dream, and the dream brings you back. In Dark Souls, you're a bearer of the curse, an accursed undead, the chosen undead, and the fact you are undead brings you back to life from the dead. In every single From Software game, there are lore implications to how you die, and the death mechanic inside of Elden Ring seems to suggest you are a demigod. You see, we know Marika took death away from her descendants and her children. We know this is told to us time and time again. Is it strange, perhaps, that we just seem to never die? Well, in my eyes, the answer is clear. We are a demigod, but there is more information that suggests this and even proves it further. We are told time and time again in the lore about how Ranni ordered the Night of the Black Knives, where she ordered a bunch of Newman girls to go up and shank up her own brother. Which, to be completely honest, reminds me a lot of Birmingham on a Saturday night. The important part here isn't the dire state that Birmingham can go into at night. It instead on the fact of how they sort of semi-killed Godwyn. They managed to steal fragments of the Rune of Death. The Rune of Death being the very same rune that Marika took out of the Elden Ring. And even with this supposed god-slaying rune that could be used to kill the demigods, the best Ranni can do is form a centipede, where she kills her body, and yet she also kills Godwyn's soul, a dual pact. That is the best she can do with a fragment of death that can supposedly kill gods. And yet we can just go out straight off the back without any fragments from the Rune of Death and just kill demigods. Even before defeating Malekith and unbinding the Rune of Death, you can go and kill demigods. Godric, Radhn, Rykard, so on and so on. There are so many demigods that you can just go and kill. And us being able to do this doesn't have anything to do with the grace we're given as Tarnished. In fact, this is proven to us by Ranni. She's an Empyrean chosen by the Two Fingers. To me, it seems that she would have, at that point where she killed Godwyn's soul, she would have had grace. And yet, she cannot kill kill Godwyn. I know it says in item descriptions that after the defeat of the Gloam-Eyed Queen, Malekith sealed it away. And yet Ranni managed to steal fragments of it, which kind of suggests to me it's not fully sealed away. Plus, Malekith says, I will not have it stolen from me again, which suggests again it wasn't fully sealed. And yet when it was taken away from that sealing process, it was still not able to slay gods. And while yes, you could make the argument it's because Ranni only had a fragment of it, but it's also worth mentioning that she made countless knives from the Rune of Death, and she even left another piece of fragment to her brother, which mind you was quite a big bit. It's not like she had a tiny amount of destined death, she had quite a bit, and the fact she wasn't able to fully carry out what she wanted to do, to me this suggests that we have something that Ranni and all these other demigods did not have. There is something special about us, and I think it has something to do with the Gloam-Eyed Queen. The Gloam-Eyed Queen's flames were said to be god-slaying flames. Something I find very interesting is the Gloam-Eyed Queen's flames are different to the ones Malekith conjures with the same Rune of Death. There is something different about the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Perhaps this power was bestowed upon her just like so many other demigods have their own respective powers. So it would only be fitting that the full power of the Gloam-Eyed Queen would be passed on to her children, and they would be able to slay gods just like she was able to do. After all, she did imbue her power into her greatsword, which allowed the apostles to even use the flame. She is a part of this deathly flame. From the in-game evidence we are given, we can sort of make the assumption that Empyreans are children of Marika. Miquella, Ranni, Malenia. They're all children of Marika and they're all Empyreans. And yet we also find out that the Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean, which to me kind of suggests that the Gloam-Eyed Queen was a child of Marika. And when we look at the fact that Melina has a lot of connections to the Gloam-Eyed Queen, everything sort of starts to add up. To start with, it's almost 100% definitive that Melina is a child of Marika. There's quite a few points to this. First of which, she's able to turn the power of runes into strength, something to my knowledge no one is able to do. The fact is, runes are fragments of the Elden Ring scattered across the lands between. The fact she's able to turn those into strength is kind of telling. Secondly, in Morgott's boss fight when you summon her, she uses a minor erdtree, something we find out in the DLC Marika created and shared with only herself. An incantation founded in the deserted home of her family, something she probably might have considered teaching to her very own daughter. Thirdly, Melina's internal name in the game files is Marika of Daughter. Fourthly, inside the DLC, more info is given about her. Something I was mistaken on due to a hoax that I couldn't verify due to have beaten the game. Mesmer's kindling still remains, and it talks about how his little sister bore visions of flame. Now we also know that Melina is a kindling maiden, and those who walk alongside fire shall one day meet the road of destined death. We know that Melina has this obsession with flame as we see in her questline, so to me it's only fitting that she is this little sister that Mesmer talks about. Fifthly, there's a lot of questline stuff in-game where she knows stuff she shouldn't be able to know unless she was a demigod. Like she talks about Marika talking to other demigods that she quote-unquote learns from being in the church. But I think it's just more likely she's remembering stuff as she goes to these churches, as throughout her questline she does seem very confused and disorientated, and her memories do seem a little bit fuzzy. Not to mention, for a sixth point, she says that she was instructed to do this all by her mother at the foot of the erdtree. Considering all of this and the fact that Marika is inside the erdtree and has been supposedly able to do that for a really long time, I don't think it's too far-fetched to make the assumption that Marika is her mother. This all gets even more interesting when you realise the Gloam-Eyed Queen is most likely Melina. Now we know Empyreans are chosen by the fingers, which in this age and at this time were sort of aiding the Golden Order, and yet they choose the Gloam-Eyed Queen, and so this Empyrean has to be a child of Marika. It makes the most sense that this is Melina, which is further reinforced in the Frenzied Flame ending, where her sealed eye actually opens, revealing a gloam-coloured eye, while the other eye dulls. She then talks about delivering destined death, the very same power the Gloam-Eyed Queen once had. And also, by the way, I feel like I've just got to say this, she's called the Gloam-Eyed Queen because she had a gloam-coloured eye. Melina has a gloam-coloured eye. Something I found out post-recording that I simply could not leave out. While I was getting some footage of the Black Flame monks inside of the Caelid Tower, I noticed they dropped the smouldering butterfly, which the DLC all but confirms is Melina's butterfly. Now the Black Flame monks are loyal to the Gloam-Eyed Queen. They have the black flames of the apostles. So this further reinforces the whole point of Melina being the Gloam-Eyed Queen. I wholeheartedly believe that the Gloam-Eyed Queen is Melina, and that gives some sort of interesting implications for our parentage. And the fact Melina is most likely the Gloam-Eyed Queen actually further proves this theory and actually adds a lot more weight to it. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of Tarnished, Torrent chooses us. Melina even tells us herself she doesn't know why Torrent chose us. She's just as confused as we are. I believe there's more to why Torrent chose us. Melina, in-game, is Torrent's master. Although Melina is bequeathed the ring that summons Torrent, Torrent and Melina still spend a lot of time together. And so, when Torrent sniffs out the Tarnished, perhaps he has actually caught the scent of his current master, Melina, and that is why he chooses us. It would also make sense that he seems to follow us into battle regardless. Maybe Torrent himself actually thinks that we're Melina, because our scents are perhaps so similar. Melina's memory is very fuzzy throughout the game. She is trying to ascertain her purpose. And so I think it makes sense that even though we are perhaps her child or a descendant of hers, she does not know who we are. But I think instinctually she might know, because she shows such care in us. She gives us the ability to turn runes into strength. Even if we can't physically see her, she is there all the time with us. She genuinely seems to care, and this sort of business front that we see all throughout the game is broken at the end, as she says those who walk alongside fire shall one day meet the road of destined death, and calls us friend in front of the erdtree before burning it. I think perhaps, considering how soft her face goes and how caring her voice sounds, maybe it was in that moment she truly remembered, and it was in that moment she looked upon her descendant, or perhaps even her child she lost long ago. The question that now remains is, how did they get to this point? I believe that there is enough evidence to say that there is a high possibility that Melina is the parent or ancestor of our Tarnished. But why did this happen? Why were they separated? Well, at one point in time, Melina was turned into a burnt and bodiless being. She was perhaps the Gloam-Eyed Queen before that, and in this new form, she was tasked by her mother to become this kindling maiden, to burn the erdtree. But if she had a child in that time, it would be left behind, motherless. And so what is Marika to do with this offspring of her child? Well, none other than to perhaps kill it. But knowing Marika's soft spot for her children, especially the ones without ailments, maybe Marika could not bring herself to do it. And so, as this child sat around, waiting for Marika to quote-unquote grow a pair, but an excuse came not to kill the baby when she took the grace away from Godfrey and he was sent to the Badlands. Him and the Tarnished were sent away. This would be the perfect excuse to get out of not killing him. And I believe that is exactly what happened. She sent him away with Godfrey and the Tarnished, and he integrated with their people. Grew up with them, learned with them, far away from the lands between. You know what I find really fascinating? When we are introduced as the Tarnished, the narrative says in a shaky voice, and one other whom grace would again bless, suggesting that we as a person had grace before. This shakiness of the voice kind of makes me think maybe he knows exactly who we are. And to be honest, I have this little pet theory. If we look where it says, "Ye dead who yet live," it talks about those people, there's a break, and then it says, "and another whom grace would again bless." Perhaps we aren't included in the "ye dead who yet live." We aren't included in the dead Tarnished. One could argue that we only saw us lying down and we grabbed a piece of grace that was floating towards us, which would also play into the whole thing about grace not being what keeps us alive, and instead something that is intrinsically part of us, compared at least to the other Tarnished. We then wake up beyond the fog in the Chapel of Anticipation, which has tons of memorabilia of Godfrey and the Storm King and all to do with that. But the important part being the building we actually awake in. There's this robed figure pointing outwards from behind us. And then also on the actual doorway we see this regal woman in this robe, and she's being tended to. There's other people being tended to as well, but she stands at the centre in this regal pose with this robe completely covering her. Considering all this theorising and the fact that all the Godskin armour have these hoods, personally I know it sounds like a bit of a reach, but don't you think that maybe this could be the Gloam-Eyed Queen on here? If we are her child and she wants us to further go into the lands between, she's put this statue there and she's pointing exactly where to go. There's also a Marika statue further along this Chapel of Anticipation, so maybe there was some kind of bond between the Gloam-Eyed Queen and Melina, but for whatever reason there was a divide. Or perhaps there wasn't even a divide and some other issue we don't know of came about. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching, but that's just a thought I had. Maybe I'm going batshit insane. I also wanted to say we really don't know who the father is. It could be that we're just Athena mind babies from Melina, but if there is a father, we don't get any information on him, and we probably won't ever unless we get some kind of Elden Ring 2 or Elden Ring DLC 2, which I'm sniffing the copium that we are, but we probably aren't. Sadly everyone, that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel and lets me know you're enjoying this style of content. We are honestly so close to 10,000 subscribers, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the support. It means more than the world to me. Thank you so much, guys. I'm not going to hold you any longer, as I know that's how these videos seem to always go. So please, don't you dare go hollow, and may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye, everyone.